Buenos dias, fuckers. Welcome to Firefighter Live. What is it, 19 March? Down here, you don't pay attention. I'm live from Elias Nachos and Wings Bar and Grill Restaurant. Awesome little spot in Sayulita, Mexico. We're having a fucking good time. You saw the show the other day. You know how much of a good time we're having. Nobody's jumped in yet, but we'll get there. We got a lot to talk about today. We've got a special guest coming on. We'll get to him in a bit. I'm going to bring in one of the old drab hooligans, Mr. Bryce Hooper. What's going on, bro?
How are you, dude?
I heard you're getting 10 centimeters of snow tomorrow.
Yeah. I was enjoying the 8 degrees that was here. So
I bet it's all going to melt.
Yeah.
I should have brought my headphones.
What's the temperature like there? A balmy 25 or what?
25, 26 maybe, 25.
Nice.
We got some Pacifico going on, as you can see in my lovely background. We've got some lovely tequila. We're gonna get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Who's jumped in here? Bear with me, everybody. I'm impaired because I should be.
Positive Mike and Tara joined in.
Mike and Tara.
Yeah. Danielle.
Mike, you need to come. Danielle's in the house. Yeah. So before we bring in Johnny, I want to talk a little bit about an article I read today. And I said I wasn't going to get into this, but I'm going to get into it. Retired General Rick Hillier wrote an article in the National Post. I think it was yesterday or today. I don't know. And basically, he's embarrassed about Canada's commitment in the Ukraine. He speaks to all these sanctions and everything like that, but those are not things that the Ukraine needs right now. What they need are weapons to fight this war. And he goes into what a shit state the CF's in, our marginal commitment to Ukraine by giving them old shitty equipment that we're going to get rid of anyway, and really gets into what we should be doing is like buying $1 billion worth of Stingers, Javelins, MLAWs, whatever, air defense systems to help them out. It's a great article. I'm not going to get too hard into it today because it's something I want to save for next Wednesday, and I'm on vacation right now.
Yeah. Well, the fact that they've lost 61 of 70 tanks in one regiment, they've become ineffective in some manners. So
for sure, it's crazy, man. So it's a great article. We'll get back into that stuff next week. Right now, we're in chill mode. We're in vacation mode.
Yeah, let's talk tequila, my man.
Yeah, we are gonna talk tequila. I'm gonna bring in our guest, my main man Johnny, and I'm gonna let him introduce himself. We'll start talking about his background and his journey through life, and from how he got to where he started, and got to where he was. And I'll try to let him have the stage, and I can answer questions that you guys might have. It's a fucking amazing story. So let's bring him in. Johnny, what's going on? He's actually he took it right beside me. We're gonna get back to that. He's gonna move because we're getting feedback.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, we're just gonna share one camera.
You there?
That's good.
There you go. Yeah. Oh yeah, he looks chill as fuck.
He's repping hard. I'm gonna give him the floor. Johnny, introduce yourself to everybody, bro.
Hey, how's it going? Johnny Valdovinos, born and raised Washington State. Currently establishing myself as a resident of Mexico now, here in the beautiful Sayulita. And been working on a few projects here. I was lucky enough to run into these guys, Chris, and guys just popped in here, looked like they wanted a beer, and we got to chatting, and now we're here. I think throughout this little episode, we can throw some questions at me. Once we get to that point, we can answer them. But how'd I get back to Sayulita from, let's see, my first visit in 1988, I think it was. I was about 7 years old. Grandpa lived down here, and we started visiting every summer break. So it's not a surprise. We ended up down here, retiring and starting new projects. we'll just talk about Liberación and our tequila dream that we got to spread around the world, actually, starting in the U.S. and Canada and moving forward from there. What can I give you, Chris? What sounds good?
Right on. Let's start with what was it like growing up in Washington?
Growing up in Washington, for me, my family migrated to Washington State. I was still in my mother's belly, so I was first born in the States. Two older siblings. I'll touch a little bit about them. They migrated with my parents early 80s. My father had already been to the States in the 70s, but older brother, Mexican-born, which Chris will have a great chance to meet, U.S. Marine, and now living in Mexico now, working real estate. But he has a great story as well. His sister, born in Mexico, eventually became a church missionary and spent about 8 years in Kenya. So she's got a great story too. But yeah, moved up there, firstborn, high expectations, from my parents on working hard and being selfless. Biggest thing. So that's what generated my interest in becoming a firefighter. And following my brother, for a while I was going to go into the service, but once I got my full-time offer before I was 19 to become a wildland firefighter into leadership roles, I dropped out of college and I followed that career, which I think all my mentors that guided me through those decisions, that now I'm able to spend some time in this beautiful country of Mexico and continue my dream at a young age, continue a second dream of helping out my country, Mexico, as well.
So Johnny, how did you firefighting? How did you get into that?
Coming out of high school, we just had a smoke jumper who was also our shop and agricultural teacher, FFA leader. Just asked about 3 of us, and he's like, "What are you guys doing this summer? You guys want to fight fire?" We're like, "We don't know what it's about, but sure." He's like, "Buy these kind of boots and show up to the ranger district on this day." And after about half an hour to 45 minutes of being there and seeing all the other firefighters, I was like, "Yep, this is where I need to be." And I think everyone who invested their time, I wasn't even 19 when they got my permanent position, so I was able to make it my career.
Right on.
So you were just baptized by fire, hey? First time out, you fell in love.
Yeah,
And
fire and whiskey.
everybody's jumping at Tequila. Mike wants to know, do you have your own plantation? He wants to get right to Tequila. So let's talk about 20 years of firefighting and some of you cut Sayulita, you're making Tequila. So everyone's to cut to that. Let's talk about Tequila and the myths. Dispel the myths because I hate Tequila. And let me show you guys this wonderful Tequila. And I don't even like Tequila, but he's got me on it. There it is. I made this awesome picture. So let's talk about how did you get into Tequila?
2017, I met up with my bro down here. We did a road trip down here with some other firefighters that we wanted to break those myths really about like how dangerous Mexico is. So we ended up driving down a few firefighters, our pedal bikes, my dad's huge Dodge Ram truck, and drove all the way from Washington State to here, Sayulita, and ran into our brother Josue here, who's opened up this restaurant 11 years ago, and he inspired us to commit to maybe sometime living down here. He was living down here. He spent time in the U.S. and we started realizing that we'd have people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different professions, millionaires, developers, everybody sitting in a tiny little bar enjoying one beverage, which was the tequila. And And at that point, I wasn't much of a tequila fan either. After partying hard and getting sick on it, but tried the tequila, saw how delicious it was, and then learned. I wanted to learn, why is this one good, and why is it crappy tequila. And so that's what I've been. It's a forever journey of learning. But I've gotten some of the details, I've talked to Chris about, and I'll be able to share a little bit with you folks on why there can be good tequila and why there is tequila that doesn't give you hangovers, and the culture of tequila, and a little bit of its process and its history.
Well, I can tell you right now, Matt, I was never a tequila guy. Every time I come down to Mexico, there's always somebody that says, you need to try this tequila. I'm like, no, I fucking don't want it. And of course, you twisted my arm, and we've been smashing it every night we're here. And it's really good. It's not that crap you get back on the United States, and it's still better than you don't need a chunk of lemon and salt and all the bullshit. And actually, Johnny showed me how to properly drink, how to actually breathe, let it slide down. That exhale is amazing. What is that? I apologize for the feedback. We got a lot going on here, but we are in a bar in Mexico, so you're gonna work with it.
Is that just a backup alarm?
Could be.
Yeah, somebody driving backwards in a truck.
I'm amazed the mic picks that shit up. So Johnny's gonna try. You're gonna start exporting to the USA.
What's that?
You're gonna export to the United States now.
Yeah. So hanging out in 2017. A person who inspired me to do what we're doing now was Zach Lang. He owns quite a few restaurants down the Pacific Northwest, I think Vegas, Boise, obviously the Seattle, Portland area, Matadors restaurants, which is kind of focused on tequila and Mexican gourmet. But he was just, what's your plan after life? Well, after firefighting, what's the plan? I really don't have one. So the ability of having dual citizenship, start exploring, being able to take this exact tequila, marketing it, and getting it up to the percent that deserve to taste it, but maybe you can't come to Mexico or don't have the desire to. But it made sense, and he kind of, quite a few nights of drinking tequila convinced me, and then I started researching and getting, gathering all the tools I needed, which was creating partners within the family. Josue here, owner of Elias Nachos and Wings, Ramiro Rodarte, who was able to give us a facility downtown Tequila, Jalisco, so I could build what we did, which is the bottling facility in our organization, so that we can have our own tequila, licensed, branded, and ready for export, as well as national sales here. Our export goal, we have our importing license to Washington State and state liquor license, thanks to Dave Navy. Shout out, brother. He's going to be U.S. operations and has more of experience with his sales and marketing. Plus, he's an awesome videographer. Currently is in Washington, couldn't join this feed, but great guy to know. And Liberacion, the many nights of drinking and throwing out names, we came up with Liberacion as a brand name.
Nice. So I was doing a little bit of digging before I jumped on here, and I didn't realize that the plant that is used specifically to build tequila on the base of it all, it's actually just the heart of the plant that's used?
Yep, that's the heart, or you can call it piña. It resembles a pineapple. So you cut off all the little spikes, you could call it. Those are the pencas. And then it creates a piña. That piña is then cut up in pieces and roasted.
Wild.
Different techniques, different tequila masters, different roasting processes. There's also like diffusing styles.
Johnny, you got to sorry to interrupt. You got a brother on here. Name that Brad. Offload delay. Firefighter.
Yeah. My brother G, he was fresh out of high school, U.S. Marine. He was a resident, U.S. resident because he was born in Mexico. Enlisted, received some of those benefits of becoming a citizen in his lifetime. After his 4 years with the Marines, we're reunited again and fought fire for 1 year on the same battalion. And
Crazy.
that took him, a couple different paths, mostly through aviation, firefighting, repelling out of platforms, 205s, 212s, 407s. And
Wow.
repel operations consisted of firefighting, large fire support, special missions, search and rescues.
Yeah.
And,
Do you find yourself volunteering for the fire brigades down there at all?
we've done a little bit of work with some of the wildland firefighting program here in the state of Nayarit, which has a pretty big program. I was thankful enough to meet the son of the actual fire coordinator for the state, which has become a great friend of mine, and I've been able to go up to their fire station and fire towers and share some of the knowledge we have, some of the operations, and just swapping stories.
Skills and so forth, right? Yeah. So stuff that's worked for you in the past. Yeah.
Exactly.
So going back into the comments, Positive Mike was saying that you're actually supposed to sip most tequilas because even in Mexico, I was reading that you're just supposed to sip them instead of shooting it. And that's actually probably the difference between a good tequila and
let's
something
get
you want
into
to
that.
get rid of.
How do you drink tequila properly? Because I've been fucking doing it wrong apparently my whole life. I just turned 51.
Yeah, so I think the shooting the tequila, keeping the salt and lighting the line, we've all done it, but it's more hiding from the taste. We have a misconception that that'll make it better for you, but at the end of the day, what really happens is that we're not getting the best quality tequila up in the U.S., so we just want to end that story as fast as possible, so we shoot it. But here in Mexico, as you'll see, this is the God's nectar, and we're having a traditional 100% blue agave tequila. It's somewhat of a sin, if not disrespect, if somebody gives you a shot that you just shoot it. You want to taste it. And so something I did with Chris when he first got here was unique from the master arrows. The processes of your hands smelling everything, but when it comes down to the good part, really going to drink it, inhaling a little bit through the mouth, letting that liquid go down the throat a little bit, as it's making its way down, breathe up the mouth really slow, help you capture all the notes that are lost when you're shooting it.
Yeah, hitting in the comments. Is it better over in ice, or is it something that you would just leave neat?
So any fine, beverage that you put over ice, it's going to get diluted a little bit. And so if that's your preference, that's great. But we chill our tequila here in house in a bottle, and then as we pour it, it's already chilled in the glass, and it's cooler. That'll hide some of the aromas and notes even more and make it sweeter. But it also, makes it a little bit more. It coats the throat a little bit more when you sip cool tequila. So it's definitely a preference.
Yeah.
But I recommend even if you have some semi-okay tequila or yucky tequila, if you chill it, it'll make it smooth.
Now, what about the myth of it? The bottle has to have a worm in it.
That's for aesthetics.
Is that something that's just some cheap tequilas do that, or is that just is that a for real?
A true master tequilero will tell you that if it has anything floating in it, just stay away from it. It's for aesthetics. So if you have a crappy mezcal, which I think a lot of us have seen that mezcal with the worm at the bottom, it's probably some of the worst tasting mezcal I've ever had in my life. But because it has a worm, I'm willing to buy the bottle, right? So it's a little marketing. It doesn't change anything on flavor or effect.
Now, speaking of flavor and taste, it's true that tequila is appellation of origin, so it influences itself like a wine or a champagne or even cannabis in itself. Is it true on a tequila level, where even where it's brewed, bottled, and stored for that little bit of time, that it's going to taste different per region?
Yeah, there's one plant, right, can only be used for tequila. So I'll break it down a little bit. So 51% of any tequila bottle has to be that blue agave we're talking about, and then 49% by law can be anything of your liking, whether it's rye corn, sugar cane, firewater, whatever you want. But that's going to really change the effect it's going to give you, right? But there's only certain regions that are allowed to grow this plant in certain states. In certain states, only by municipality. But there's two categories of this blue agave. There's either highland or lowland. And basically, highland tequila is going to give you a sweeter, more floral body to it. And then that lowland tequila is going to give you that spicy or peppery, tingly feeling.
Okay, wild. Now, it's also, I was reading up a little bit about how there's actually certain parts of Mexico that are protected by World Health, or because of its history and the natural place where the blue agave plant grows, that it's actually a protected world site because of. Now, is that something that draws people down to see the area, or is it something that's closed off to most people?
No, the beautiful thing about Mexico is that you go anywhere in Mexico and people want to show you what they have. This blue agave is only divided into municipalities, right? But along those, you drive through these regions, everything alongside the road is where you can see up on the hillside. It's all blue, growing everywhere. There isn't these huge walls or fences that guard you from even touching the plants. You can just pull over off the road, take these beautiful pictures, next to the plants, touch the plants. Farmers will come out and be happy to take the time to check it out.
Dang, eh? So
Sorry,
how big do these plants?
We
These
apologize
plants
for the
take,
fucked up feedback. I don't know where it's coming from. We're trying to work it out.
so they take 8 to 12 years to harvest properly.
Properly.
That's crazy. So this is a game where it's like, it's a long-term game. You have to get yourself established. And is this where distilleries have access to certain grow facilities within that plant, or is it something where you guys have to fight on a daily basis, like a fresh vegetable or fresh fruit?
Yeah, so sustainable, farming is our goal, and we're only working with folks that follow that practice. So these folks are going to have nurseries. They're going to be planting. We've been lucky enough; a family allowed us to go on the property, plant hectares of blue agave, which will be harvested probably in 4 years now. So we put them on the ground. We're targeting in that area. It's per region elevation, and everything is going to let you know how long it takes you to grow your plant and reach the sugar levels, right? Bricks, like wine, you have to hit a nice level of bricks, and then before you harvest, so that fermentation happens. But,
yeah, so that comes from the core of the plant, or the heart of the
Yep.
plant, is what you were saying. And that's where the 8 to 12 years is going to come, because you want that heart to be as big as possible, basically, eh?
You don't want to go too high in sugars, and you don't want to be too low.
Okay, so you're providing nutrition and everything else to the soil as well
Yeah, so
to create that sugar.
Yes, you let them, wherever you plant it and harvest it, you let it rest. All the plants you cut off, that's going to be natural compost. There is some other compost that come into play in certain regions, but when it comes to maintaining the plant, it's very basic, very low cost. Just making sure it doesn't get bugs. It's most regions are just watered by the heavens. There's no irrigation systems to most of these plants. Not a cactus, it's a plant. But
Yeah, that's something else that I was reading, man. It looks like a cactus when you first Google it, but in fact, it's closely related to the lily plant.
I thought it was
That's-
a cactus too.
Yeah, it looks like a cactus, man, especially with those big giant spikes laying out. But that's just the offshoot of what the flower would be. Now, being related to the lily, is that something that you could harness the taste of? Because the terpene value in a lily or lilacs is the calming effects. So you would have different calming effects that you could harness within the tequila plant itself.
Yeah, so influencers, something that influences your flavor, it's going to be the actual pollination, of, and then the natural yeast in the area. So, a lot of folks, cappuccino, hope you know, he wants to say it.
There's the pooch.
Yeah, it's a defender. But no, we have. So what's going to influence a lot of your flavors is going to be. So if you had a botanical garden around your facility where you're actually going to do the fermentation, there could be a lot of influences. A lot of folks like having mango trees, guayaba, oranges, lemons, and those natural yeasts in the air. If you do what we do with our tequila is that it's naturally fermented. And
Okay.
and so that it's just whatever yeast is in the air is what's gonna
Wow.
have it go through that stage. Which the beauty of it is you're not pushing it like some of the bigger companies that have that high demand are going to bring champagne yeast, for example, and throw it in there to accelerate it. But at the end of the day, you're only talking about 3 to 4 days difference doing a natural fermentation versus an accelerated.
Wow. So you were saying earlier that it takes a minimum of 3 years to barrel. But what type of barrels and how long do you use your techniques, or is that proprietary and secret?
There's a little bit of secret on some of the mixing of it, but the law of what a blanco is, right? That's the first that's going to be when you first get out of your. You're going to double distill at least, right? And once you get that product, it's blanco, it's clear, right? Send it to its filters, it's clear. That's why there's no color to it, right? And so it's considered a blanco or a Hogan, silver. So there's silver plata, which would be the kind of next stage. But there isn't much with it, but it's basically like it might rest on a little bit of oak, whether it's French oak, white oak, rest on there maybe max 15 days. You're gonna have a lot of go to reposado, then you're talking at least 2 months, 9 months. Reposado, you see tequila, so those are the categories: blanco, plata, reposado, and then you get into añejo. Añejo is going to be a minimum of 2 to 3 years, but anything beyond 3 years, you can still call it an añejo or an extra añejo, which is also a category. With these levels, you see the color change, get darker and darker. And so that's going to be because of the cask, right? The cask is releasing this color and this and those flavors, right? Like wine, smooth it out. You put it in some oak barrels. Oak barrels we're talking about, again, they're oak. Well, American oak, French oak. Mexico has the equivalent of American oak, but a lot of the barrels are outsourced from the U.S. bringing whiskey barrels in, and then there's also a lot of barrels coming over from overseas in Spain and Portugal, wine barrels, and so it's just really the mix master that does the magic at that point to get you to those notes and what you're looking for. So.
Now that fermentation process that you were saying earlier, Positive Mike in the comments was asking whether or not that's a natural, or is that something that actually takes place inside of a large facility?
So it's going to be depending on the facility you want. And again, every region does it different, but people will use like big oak tanks that can fill up to 10, million liters. These huge tanks, but they're all lined by oak, Some folks will use volcanic rock pits, and some folks will use your stainless steel tanks. And so it's just about how much control you want to have, and how much uniformity, and what path you're going to take. They're all great. It all leads to that same objective of creating your personal recipe that you can share with the world. So creativity there. That's the beautiful thing about making tequila, is that in these processes, the containers you're using, it's really your creativity and uniqueness.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Now, you've been doing this for quite a while. Is there a special reserve that you've created other than just the Liberation?
So Liberación was a lot of tastings involved. Obviously, we had a lot of folks taste, a lot of get us to point A to point B, and I think that to answer your question, I'm working on becoming a mix master, you can call it, where we're using different styles of barrels, ratios of different with the aging process and everything to try to. Because when you have a world 2 to 3 years, 4 or 5 years of aging, but it's still going to be considered the same category, where in those years are you going to hit that point where it's your favorite? Just because it's your favorite doesn't mean that it becomes everybody else's. Because I'll tell you what, it does hurt a little bit. But when we did tastings and brought all these folks in, my favorite was the least liked. So
no way, really?
Yeah. So I'll have my special reserve, a small batch special reserve down the road. Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, that basically answers the difference for Danielle in the comments. She was asking what's the difference between the tequila and the mesa. That's basically the processing time and the equivalency of aging.
Yeah. So mezcal, yes and
mezcal,
no. Yeah. So mezcal is blue agave can also be mezcal. It's when you first, you do your double, triple distillation, and you have your product sitting at 65% alcohol, right? Anything basically above 55% is considered a mezcal. So it's technically can be a mezcal at that stage, and that's at its rawest form. The other beautiful thing about mezcal is that it's just not limited to one maguey or agave plant. I believe currently there's like 186 registered maguey agave plants in Mexico, and again, it also has its what is it called, denomination of origin. So it also has its rules of where you can grow it and where you can bottle it, where you can process it here around Mexico. It's a little bit more broad than tequila, but you start looking up all these different maguey or agaves, and you have like Tempestate, Tobala, Espadín, Madre Quiche. You can go forever. Those are some of the more popular ones. But the beautiful thing about mezcal is that you can spend your whole lifetime tasting it, and you probably won't finish having every single one.
Wow.
These plants, incredible. Some of them are growing from 5 years to 15 years to 20 years. So,
okay. Wow. So that'll increase the sugar and everything else that is. Yeah. Now, you taking that kind of an aged plant now, going in with Positive Mike? Is there something that you're taking a 10-year, 15-year plant and then aging it for 10 or 15 years in different barrels or something like that?
Yeah. So that's something new. And the mezcal back in the day was always clear and it wasn't aged. But as things started evolving, and folks started finding out that you put it in some oak and it's going to take some of that edge off. Folks started getting creative, and again, mezcal is like another world, and I'm so jumping into it. There's mezcal now that as it's being so when it's being distilled, it's per pot. Right? There's like folks that are grabbing a full lamb, once it's been harvested, and they'll hang a full lamb inside the distilling tank, and that thing just melts into your product. And they also do it with turkey breasts. So you can find mezcal pechuga or mezcal borrego, Mezcal Conejo, you know, and it'll have and it obviously it's not
Like a
vegan.
sweeter taste, eh?
Yeah, it's smokier, you know.
Yeah,
it was pretty.
that'd be an
pretty
incredible.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
mezcal
no
is just
kidding.
it's an amazing world of
So
uniqueness.
I can't recall earlier. You said you were hitting North America for distribution. Have you hit Canada at all? Because I'm I'm not one to drink very often. I'm incredibly selective with who I drink with and what I drink. But I've always been a fan of tequila, and if you've got something up this way, I hope I can go out and try it. Is there anywhere that you're selling it in Canada at all?
Nope. So our first, you guys are catching us right. You know, we're knocking on the door to get into the U.S. So we have all our permits set up and everything. Our facility here in Mexico, we got registered last November. We got it registered with the FDA in the U.S. now. So it's paperwork and border stuff, right? First shipment into the U.S. But we already have folks that are in Canada exploring the different avenues we need to take to get into Canada, because it's harder to get into Canada with booze than it is the U.S. But so we have some professionals helping us out. It sounds like the route will be more on the Quebec side into, and then ship. Most of our acquaintances, friends from like west side of Canada. As it's easier for folks to travel from, you know, BC, Alberta, you know, down to our region, Mexico. We tend to find more folks from that region of Canada here. We have a great following in Canada, and Toronto, and all those areas. Our neighbors, you know, that live next to the restaurants from
Man,
eastern sides.
Yeah, I'd be interested in talking about a co-brand of different kind of tequila. That'd be something else.
Yeah, so we created a blueprint actually of seeing that there's a lot of athletes, so a lot of folks interested that may have that spare money to create their own brand. It's created a blueprint of how somebody could create their own brand. You know, basically having with our facility, our permits, our employee abilities, and all that. To where obviously that'd be a project down the road, but something we bring as well. And folks that already have their brand started, or you know, or have the work done and need a fun facility, you know, we're going to have a lot of stuff filled in by folks. Boutique type of mezcals or tequila. We're also going to be diving into raicilla, which is even another world of spirits here from Mexico, similar to tequila and mezcal. It's just the region where it's allowed to be grown. It's basically small and super small. 2 states, maybe 3 states,
and it's controlled geographically. Absolutely,
geographically,
yeah. It's actually something that's proprietary. It's pretty cool to see, because then it kind of allows certain areas of the world to thrive on certain things, right? You've got champagne out of France, and you've got these amazing sipping drinks out of Mexico now. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Rock's drinking brand that he's launched?
So, you know, there's been like, you know, Clooney, Jenner, or who is it? Khloe Kardashian. Some of them, you know, famous folks that I think attention really matters. Like Dwayne Johnson, Mexico, shows a face, builds a facility, creates jobs. Is visiting the country, is in magazines down here, photo shoots in Mexico. That type of involvement and job creator, I think it's a good example of how to help the country out. That's helping you out create your brand. You know, those folks obviously are going to sell anything they market because that's been their career. You know, they were able to create that persona, you know, and that professional. So I dig him, you know. I think, you know, George Clooney came in, started something similar, created jobs, but, you know, sold the company, you know, and down here. But it's really, if your intention is good, the country's going to love you, and that's the biggest thing to take away. And I think Johnson's doing a good job of staying connected.
Yeah, and he's given back on more access to things. Going back into the comments, Danielle is asking if there's a certain time of year that the agave plant is harvested.
So it all depends. Again, some of the little secrets or uniqueness of your tequila. What type of fermentation are you going to do? What type of year you want to do it. A lot of these fermentations are open air, so how's the yeast going to react on hot weather and cold weather, right? And a lot of those notes, exactly. We've made a little bit of wine as well over in the States, and we've learned that these cooler fermentation types of fermentation tend to give you sweeter notes.
Sweet, more like an ice wine. Absolutely, dude. I grew up in BC a little bit and got to experience some of those sweet icer wines that were treats more than anything, with a little bit of flavor. Yeah, so it'd be cool to see any of those kind of drinks coming into your guys' brand in the future. Is there any of those kind of?
Yeah, we got agave syrup, different mixes, seltzers and stuff that we're slowly working on perfecting. But a little bit of that cool fermentation, how much control do you want to have of uniformity? And you're going to want to stick to a certain temperature. So if you really don't have the money to build a facility, like we didn't have the money to Wisconsin to build a facility to have the environment, then we're going to take advantage of the forecast type of the year and hit those windows as fermentation happens within, it could be 5 to 7 days.
Hey, Bryce, brother, I got a question. Just to kind of circle back around, because we're talking about Clooney and guys like Dwayne Johnson. So I get it. Like those guys, they have a lot more money than we do. And if I was, if I was like, I really like bourbon. So if I was a multi-millionaire, borderline billionaire, and I wanted to start my own label and say, kind of like Dan Aykroyd has the Crystal Skull vodka. Now, I know a lot of people that are vodka drinkers, and they say, it's a mediocre, vodka at best, but the marketing's really good and it's got a really cool bottle. As opposed to you, Johnny, somebody like yourself, like you're very well versed, like you're an artist. You know exactly what you're doing. Okay, so somebody like Clooney or Dwayne Johnson, who really likes mezcal or and they have a lot of money, or tequila or bourbon or whatever, and so they have a good marketing team, and people are going to buy their product because, well, this is George Clooney's or Wayne Gretzky's or Dan Aykroyd's, and that's great. I mean, they're creating jobs in Mexico, and that's awesome. But like, how does obviously that differs from somebody like yourself, who like you're a craftsman, you're an artist. So, I mean.
So it's,
I don't know if that's a question or a statement, but it's just something that's been on my mind.
You look at it in the sense of, are you, what's your intention? Again, is your intention to just be able to say that I own a tequila brand, or is it like I'm putting my face and I'm stamping this, and this is the reason why mine's better? That ownership to it. I think that factor. I think makes me feel like I'm at a different level, but I'm also continually learning how to become and will become a master tequilero at the end of everything. So different paths, right? And what those intentions are.
Yeah, I guess that's my point too. Some of the greatest things that in the world, whether we're looking at alcohol, whether we're looking at motorcycles, cars, like custom vehicles, like some of the most high end things in the world were made or created largely by people that kind of go unknown, because they're not the Dwayne "The Rock" Johnsons, they're not the George Clooney's, but they're the real connoisseurs, the real artists, the real masters of their trade, right? And I kind of get that from you. You're constantly learning. You're very well educated. You know exactly what you're doing. You're not just putting a label on something, and you're not saying, "Look at me, I've got a lot of money and I'm a celebrity." You're like I said, you're a craftsman, right? So that's
blood, sweat, and tears.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
And one thing is, those guys, with the money, they're investors, right? And so they have that opportunity to run over, and come over to Mexico. They probably met somebody down the line that owned tequila companies, and they were able to sit down. And I'm sure Dwayne Johnson sat down, tried a bunch of different tequilas, many different times until he decided, I think this is the one that I want to invest in, right? And so when you decide so a little bit of going back to like understanding your tequila, once you decide which one you like, you start researching it. You start finding out, is this Highland or Lowland agave? Where is it grown? Who's making it? What's the process style? Then you're going to go to their facility and they're going to walk you through, how they do it exactly. So then you start, kind of putting, a little identity to what you're drinking, and then you understand that, hey, if I go tequila tasting, I want to go to a facility that has lowland tequila, that does accelerated fermentation, or whatever you've chosen, and then you're going to start finding out that those tequilas are going to have a lot of similarities.
That's crazy. Just going back into the comments there, because we've all had that one experience in the bar. It's just funny how if you would have taken a little bit of time and looked into it on what kind of tequila, not the gold brand up above that wasn't actually a gold at all, I could only imagine.
And the only way you'll learn and what you like is by tasting it. So it's just breaking out of that barrier. So part of this liberación, was bringing people back to enjoy tequila again, but also you get your palate becomes handcuffed, right? So we're thinking more about like liberating that palate as well, and that whole only guys with huge mustaches and hair on their chest can drink tequila and those types of like toughness things. No, you get the right tequila and anybody can have it, and here at the restaurant, just like Chris, Dan, when they were here, we come from so many different backgrounds, so many different stories, but when we can all sit down for a common reason, I think that's some type of magic, and that's kind of the big inspiration of not only selling the booze, but also educating folks, and so I've been working on a webpage in Espanol, which will translate into English, and been writing as I've been learning. It was this process, the easiest way to teach you in less than 4 pages on how the history and how tequila is made, and I'm calling it 5 Steps to Perfection.
So you've obviously been documenting this whole process. Is there a spot where we can find you on YouTube at all, or is this just something that you're waiting to release at the end?
So my business partner Dave, and you guys can go on liberaciontequila.com. He's just barely started the webpage up, and we got a little bit of history there. I encourage you guys to go check it out, and cool. That's where we're going to start, plugging in. We have 4 years, and almost 5 years into the process, but we barely plugged in, 2018. And also, so our bottling facility over here is called our restaurant here is Elias Nachos and Wings. Then the actual license and bottling facility Tequila Jalisco is called Elias El Regalo Más Grande, which we're also on elias.com, and that's all in Spanish. You can check out that webpage, and that's where I explain the process. And so Liberación became our first marketing brand of our first lot that we have, which is only going to be about 2,500 bottles of our first lot, and so it'll be very limited. And since this project is funded by the lint in our pocket, we can't start with 10 gazillion bottles like some of our other superstars.
So this is also a pandemic baby in ways. Have you felt any struggles through all of this?
Yep. Hey, plus and minuses, we continued with construction during the pandemic, so we were able to create jobs for folks that were laid off. We were a lot of our equipment that we were buying and stainless steel tanks and bottling machines and bottle washing machines and whatnot was all reusable stuff that other facilities that weren't able to cut the pandemic were starting to sell off, and so we'd get those folks reaching out to us since they saw us, our construction still going. They'd reach out and be like, "Hey, give us a hand. We'll sell you a couple tanks, or we'll sell you this machine, or we'll go." I don't know how many times we paid folks from smaller facilities to come and just give us advice. Paid 2-3 days for their advice on the machinery, or how to reroute our different stainless steel pipes, and add filters, and folks that were needing a little bit of a hand. So I think we're at the right place at the right time. The only downfall was government facilities not being open, so our inspections of our facility and all the registering and everything took a long time.
Typical bureaucratic red tape at the end of the day. You're always just waiting on somebody else, a higher up. That's really cool that you were able to get the consultants, the guys and the girls that had the elbow grease, the 10,000 hours before you kind of thing, that they've mastered those little pieces of work where now they can kind of boost what you're doing.
Yep. And, a lot of those folks really, I wish I could give them a shout out, but they still work for these bigger. Oh, boy. Yes, can't say no. A lot of these folks are still working for these big companies.
This is all I'm good for today.
And so I can't give out their names because they're still employed by these companies where they probably shouldn't have been out and about. But scratch their back, they scratch yours, and a lot of folks got laid off, and it was very sad. So I got lucky at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've been able to put you were saying 5 or 6 years into this now. What are your next 5 to 6 year plan? What do you see yourself? What is the brand heading towards?
Well, we've been so our artwork. If Chris can show the bottle again, you'll see that turtle on there, which also leads to liberación. And that's the turtle is very significant in our region here in Mexico. It's very protected. We also contribute to a local turtle rescue, and so we adopt nests during the season, and we're donating money to protect these nests so that they're not being basically poached. Because for some reason people think turtle eggs are an aphrodisiac, which is a lie, and so they're out there stealing turtle eggs and selling it in the black market. So we at least protect our beaches around this area and contribute to the night watch.
Wow. Yeah, so you're already giving back at this point. You're not even 5 years into it, and you're already giving back. How do you see any of those larger companies around giving back to the extent that you are?
Yeah, the beautiful thing is being able to spend more time here in Sayulita the last few years. I've met a lot of other restaurant owners in the area, bar owners, and so came down, and I have El Regalo, the bottling company, I was representing CEO for that. Co-founder with Liberación, and then business partners here with Josue at Elias. All three of us adopted a nest, and then did a photo shoot with a bunch of other local Sayulita folks, and I think that inspired a lot of the restaurant owners to contribute and adopt their nests and join the fight, right?
Absolutely, that's
in the areas.
And it obviously shows that you're a humanitarian. You're giving back with your heart already, with a different cause altogether. And the fact that there is like a shark finning, but this is like I didn't realize that was such a thing. The turtle's legs.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Eggs, huevos.
Oh, eggs. I thought you said legs. Oh my God. I was like, they're going to go around, just chop legs off and cut the rest out. But
well, they eat the turtles too. Yeah, the turtle comes in to lay eggs, it can lay like 100 eggs, but people come over, steal the eggs and the turtle and eat it. It just messes up the ecosystem. So
absolutely, yeah.
We also have there in liberacion.tequila.com. We talk a little bit about that program and how folks can contribute as well. So we give them a shout out for this. Sayulita, as Chris can tell you, and Dan, this place, like, it's pretty hard to find somebody with an unhappy face or a frown.
Yeah.
It's just that.
Well, with great tequila around, exactly. There's little, and I hear the food's pretty good.
Yeah. The food's great.
Oh, I can tell you the food's amazing. And on that note, I'm getting up earlier than planned to rack off some ribs with my man Johnny tomorrow. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna do slow cook some ribs and that smoke room's got outside. Good times. Let's talk about, hey, listen, What about cooking with tequila, Johnny? Have you ever cooked with tequila?
Cooking? I haven't cooked with tequila, but what I inspire folks to try. So agave, right? The plant, obviously it has sugar, so you can buy agave syrup, which we will also be selling in the States and Canada. But if you can get it, it's really expensive over, at least in the States. But we're going to have an abundance of it, and we're going to start packaging it, selling it. But that agave syrup, man, switch it for any simple syrup you're using for any drinks you do. Put it in your tea. I mean, like
Man, you're getting
kombucha.
into the
Yeah.
absolutely. You can infuse it into the cannabis industry as well.
Yep.
There's people that are putting all sort. That'd be an amazing syrup of some kind too.
Oh, I was waiting for when cannabis was coming
We
up.
knew he was coming. We knew he was going to jump to weed.
I knew he was coming for it.
Right? I fucking knew it.
Gotcha.
Yep.
No,
So-
it's one of those, man.
What about if you
Especially
put-
with a
what about-
cooking syrup.
What about agave and mushrooms?
Yes. Oh, could you imagine? That would be amazing.
So there's
Maybe a chocolate combination in there. I think we've got a winner.
there's a couple of we get all kinds of folks that move down here, and that's why I encourage like any trade, any project, any type. I have a really good friend down here, Daryl Williams, and he's a master brewer. Living in Sayulita, that guy's living the dream, man. Like, so he sold his breweries in Mexico, came down here, he makes kombucha on the side, but he works for a company, organic certifying in the U.S., but he lives in Mexico and does this all online. And so that's a great person to know because, later we can collab and start infusing some of these spirits as Mexico is actually coming around the corner on legalizing cannabis. It's already decriminalized, which was a huge step. And so we've been putting in our licenses to be able to grow in Mexico.
Nice. That's even better. Have you ever thought of using the simple syrups into a beer, infusing it with hops?
I've never
'Cause
made
you've
beer,
got-
but I'm sure it would be.
Yeah, because there's a listener right now, Positive Mike. He's got his own brewing company here in Edmonton, Alberta, sponsor of the show here as well. And I could only imagine that if you were to infuse maybe a little bit of a tequila drink into a local beer with a habanero spin to it, I bet you that would be amazing.
Yeah, so they've done some tequila beers down here, but again, it's like we need to get we need to collab with those professional beer makers, right? And seeing how can you actually pair this together and make the science of it. And so it's down here. It's so beautiful because folks come with so many different skills, and nobody sees age, race, or color down here. I mean, in our place here at the restaurant is just one of those examples of how everybody can coexist, and it's amazing. And there's a reason, I wanted to come down here after living in the U.S. all my life, and regardless of being born in the U.S., my stature, my color, my race, it still played a factor in my success.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And you find down there's no limitations.
Over here, everybody's willing to help. Obviously, money makes the world go around, but everybody down here, if you're doing with the great intention of bettering your product and you're paying folks for their knowledge, paying folks for their time, their resources, it just makes everything so much better because, Mexico being almost borderline third world, the money exchange rates from where we come from, we come to Mexico, it's a big deal, and folks down here, their minimum wages are like what we make an hour. So, their daily wage could be part of 1 hour of work, depending on our profession. Yeah. So, coming down here, and that's why I think a lot of folks, if you come into understanding you are going to a different country where things are cheaper, just don't forget those little things like tipping. If you sit down and eat it in Canada and you tip 10, 15%, 20%, there's no reason you can't do that in another country. It's even cheaper. Just following those practices really makes you stick out a lot different than your typical tourist down here. And it's great because people will embrace you. I mean, over here, it's just I don't want to leave, but sometimes you got to go back to the U.S. and take care of taxes and all that.
Well,
Man, I'm
I
just
don't know.
jealous.
Well, I'm sold.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. Chris, rent
I'm
me a
gonna
couple
sell-
rooms. I'm on my way down.
Yeah, I'm selling everything. I'm gonna take my chopper. I'm coming down.
Listen,
I'm gonna look for
Bryce,
of
anybody I fucking know, bro, you're the guy that needs to be down here, man. 100%. All you guys
You know what,
that-
Morgan? That's actually a genius
I'll tell you why
idea.
you'd love
There's
it down
got to be
here.
a charity. There's got to be a run.
You would love it down here because it is the exact opposite of everything you've ever experienced. It is fucking dope smoking bohemian hippie surfers, and all we've ever done is hard charge and army shit. And I love this. I love it here. I love meeting Johnny, and I love meeting all the people he works with. I'm having the best time. I'm sorry I'm zero value added. This podcast and hear a fucking thing, but I'm having a great time.
Yeah, it looks like Positive Mike's chirping Morgan in the comments.
What?
Looks like you need better beer, he says.
well, Positive Mike, I'm not going to disagree with you, so count some up. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Morgan, when I get back next week, I still got a few bottles of Mike's beer. I'll hook you up.
All right.
We're good.
I figure if it's good enough for Clint Eastwood, it's good enough for me, right?
Yeah.
Johnny, we're gonna wrap this up because I'm on vacation and I want to give Johnny an opportunity to send any last messaging that he wants to say to everybody, and then we're gonna fucking probably have some more tequila and party. So let's give Johnny the floor. I appreciate him coming on, and yes, everybody wants me to bring back tequila now, so that's, I don't know, I'm gonna have to get a fucking barrack box and bring all this shit back. So Johnny, I want to give you the floor. Any last message you want to say? Now's the time.
Yeah, we encourage folks to really give it an opportunity. A lot of the media that can influence ideas or misconceptions, but make it down here. Come, my biggest thing, even if you don't want to drink my tequila, just come to Sayulita, enjoy the vibe, meet the locals, hang out, and just, don't cheat yourself off of freedom. Down here, we have worked really hard in the past. A lot of us lives in the line of different types of players, right? And we come down here, and I find acceptance. I find, I'm embraced at the town everywhere I go. You guys can see people drive by the restaurant. Stop by, hug you. We shake hands over here. We hug over here. We kiss cheek over here. We whistle at each other every day. It's the same person. Real life and love still exists, and it's here in Mexico. It's never gone anywhere, and I would it 100%. But tequila, it's an inspiration to me. I think it's going to be something that going down the road, it's going to bring a lot of folks together, and take away a lot of those fears maybe of what tequila did to you once in the past, and at the same time, promote Mexico and its true environment down here, and not really get paid.
Absolutely, yeah. Start squashing some of those myths and start living the real facts of how it's actually quite peaceful down there. And the more people I see get down there, the more people are actually falling in love with the area. I've got another longtime friend.
Do not believe the hype.
Yeah, he was supposed to go down for 6 months 2 years ago, and he just hasn't left. So I could only imagine. I'm going to echo again what I've said earlier. Chris, you need to rent me a couple rooms wherever you're at and just give me the GPS, because once my road glide's on the road, man, I'm heading down that way.
100%, bro. You will love it down here. Even
Yeah.
the little rocketeer there. He wants to decompress, man. You need to come down here. I
Yeah.
love it down here.
Fuck your road glide, Bryce. I'm riding a chopper down.
Yeah, we could take that fucking coast. We could ride down here, not a problem. I don't know if you want to take that chopper though. That might be a bit much. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'm on vacation. I'm supposed to be working. So I want to thank. I'm gonna jack the floor here. I want to thank Johnny, who was sitting right across from me. We're gonna have a couple of beers. I want to thank the old Jab Hooligans, Mr. Bryce Hooper, for running this for me because I can't hear a fucking thing. And I want to thank Morgan Warren for jumping in. We're going to do this again for sure. Johnny's got a lot of other stories, and I want to meet his brother. And I want to thank all of you guys for taking some time out on your Saturday to join us today. So let's wrap her up. Say cheers. Cheers, everybody. Bryce Hooper is out. Morgan Warren is out. And my main man, Johnny, is out. Let me plug some sponsors. Fire for Effect Live is brought to you by DeanBlundell.com. Go to DeanBlundell.com for Canada's largest digital source of news, sports, podcasts. It is content for the unrefined. Also brought to you by my main man, Positive Mike's Brewing Company. You can get the beer, you can get the gear, and he's working on getting you the beer. I have the beer, and it's fucking amazing beer. And I know we're going to go through some collaboration with Johnny on that beer. Mr. Hooper Inc., your source for cannabis culture. If you want to learn about cannabis can improve your life as an alternative to conventional medicine, check out Mr. Hooper Inc., my main man, Bryce. And lastly, my source for the best beef on the planet, Mr. Jeff None and the good people at Lakeside Farmstead. None beef, second to none. It's amazing. We had a great time. Thanks for everybody for listening in. And we're going to, I'm fucking loaded right now, and we're going to do some drinking. And we will reconvene next Wednesday night, whatever date that is, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going to get back into what the fuck's been going on in the world. Until then, I am going to take a semi-well-deserved vacation. I'm going to hang out with my man Dave and my man Johnny. So we are out.